What happens when a prince who left everything behind for his principles comes face-to-face with a comedian who built his career on exposing uncomfortable truths? Tonight, we're diving into one of the most explosive television moments ever recorded, a clash so intense it never made it to air. Before we get into this incredible story, make sure to hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below telling me what you think really went down behind the scenes. The green room at The Daily Show buzzed with its usual pre-show energy. Staff members hurried back and forth, checking clipboards and adjusting lighting equipment. In the corner, Prince Harry sat quietly, scrolling through his phone, while his security detail maintained their watchful positions near the door. This wasn't his first American television appearance, but something felt different tonight. The questions his team had been briefed on seemed surface level, almost too easy for a show known for its sharp political commentary. Jon Stewart walked in, coffee in hand, his trademark casual demeanor intact. He'd interviewed presidents, prime ministers, and countless celebrities. But there was something about this particular booking that had been nagging at him all week. His producers had been unusually specific about certain topics being off limits, something that rarely happened on his show. "Your Royal Highness," Stewart said with a slight nod, his tone respectful, but not overly deferential. "Thanks for coming on tonight. Should be fun." Harry looked up from his phone, offering a polite smile. "Please, just Harry, and thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to discussing the work we're doing with veterans and mental health awareness." Stewart took a sip of his coffee, studying Harry's face. "Right about that? I have to be honest with you, Harry. My team gave me a list of approved topics, and while I respect what you're trying to accomplish, I think we might be missing an opportunity here for a real conversation." The room seemed to quiet down slightly. Harry's media trainer, who had been reviewing notes nearby, glanced up with concern. This wasn't the tone they had expected from their pre-in discussions. "I'm not sure I follow," Harry replied, his posture straightening slightly. "We discussed the format extensively, mental health, veterans issues, my charity work. That's what people need to hear about." Stewart set his coffee down on a nearby table and leaned against the wall. "Look, I've been doing this for a long time, and the most powerful conversations happen when we stop dancing around the elephant in the room. Your story isn't just about charity work. It's about family, institutions, power, and what happens when someone says enough is enough." Harry's expression shifted, becoming more guarded. "Jon, with respect, some topics are off limits, for good reason. There are legal considerations, family relationships that need to be protected." "Protected from what, exactly?" Stewart pressed, his journalist instincts kicking in. "From the truth, from accountability. You left one of the most powerful institutions in the world, gave up titles, security, everything. That's not a charity story, Harry. That's a revolution story." The security detail exchanged glances. This conversation was heading into territory they hadn't prepared for. Harry's media trainer approached slowly, sensing the tension building. "I think we should stick to the agreed-upon topics." The trainer interjected diplomatically. "The audience is expecting to hear about Harry's positive work moving forward." Stewart turned to face the trainer, his expression hardening slightly. "The audience deserves authenticity, not a sanitized press release disguised as an interview. Harry came to America talking about media manipulation and institutional failures, but now we're supposed to pretend those same institutions aren't still pulling strings." Harry stood up, his jaw tightening. "Nobody is pulling my strings, Jon. I make my own decisions now. That's the whole point." "Do you?" Stewart challenged, stepping closer. "Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you traded one set of handlers for another. Different country, same script, smile, stay on message. Don't rock the boat too hard." The room fell silent, except for the distant sound of the studio audience filing in. Harry's hands clenched slightly at his sides, a gesture that didn't go unnoticed by Stewart's experienced eye. "You don't know what you're talking about," Harry said quietly, his voice carrying an edge that hadn't been there moments before. "You have no idea what it's like to grow up in that world, to have every single decision scrutinized, to watch your mother destroyed by the very institution you're supposed to represent." Stewart's expression softened slightly, but he didn't back down. "You're right, I don't. But I know what it's like to watch powerful people avoid difficult questions while real issues go unrest. Your mother fought against that system, too, didn't she? She didn't play by their rules when it mattered." Harry's eyes flashed with something between anger and pain. "Don't you dare bring my mother into this as some kind of gotcha moment for your show. She's not a punchline or a political point to be scored." "I'm not making her into a punchline," Stewart replied firmly. "I'm pointing out that she understood something you seem to be forgetting. Real change doesn't happen through carefully managed interviews and approved talking points. It happens when someone is willing to tell the truth, even when it's uncomfortable." The tension in the room was palpable. Now Harry's security team had moved closer, not threateningly, but clearly more alert. His media trainer looked like she was calculating whether to call off the entire appearance. "The truth," Harry repeated, his voice rising slightly. You want the truth. The truth is that every single day I wake up knowing that half the world thinks I'm a traitor and the other half thinks I'm not going far enough. The truth is that I can't have a normal conversation with my own family because everything gets leaked to the press. The truth is that I'm trying to build something positive while dealing with constant attacks from people who've never had to make the choices I've made. Stewart nodded slowly. Now we're getting somewhere. That's the interview I want to have. That's the conversation that matters. Harry shook his head, frustration evident in every gesture. It's not that simple, Jon. You can't just turn on a camera and expect someone to bare their soul for entertainment. This isn't about entertainment, Stewart shot back. This is about accountability. You've positioned yourself as someone who left everything behind to fight for what's right, but you're still operating by the same rules that protected the system you claim to oppose. The air in the green room crackled with tension as both men stared at each other, neither willing to back down. Harry's media trainer stepped forward, her voice cutting through the thick tension. Gentlemen, we have about 3 minutes before we need to be on set. Perhaps we should focus on having a productive conversation that serves everyone's interests. Stewart turned to her with a look that could freeze fire. Productive for who? For the network that wants safe content. For the palace that still wants to control the narrative, even from 3,000 miles away. Or for the millions of people who are tired of watching powerful institutions protect themselves while ordinary people suffer the consequences. The palace has nothing to do with this, Harry interjected sharply, but his voice carried less conviction than his words. Doesn't it? Stewart pressed, sensing weakness. Because I've been in this business long enough to recognize when someone's been coached within an inch of their life. You sound like every other celebrity who comes on here, with a list of approved soundbites and a team of lawyers breathing down their neck. Harry's composure began to crack. Think this is easy for me? You think I wanted any of this? I didn't choose to be born into that family. I didn't choose to have my childhood splattered across every tabloid in the world. I didn't choose to watch my mother die while photographers fought over who could get the best shot of the wreckage. The room went dead silent. Even the bustling production staff seemed to sense something important was happening and had unconsciously moved closer to listen. Stewart's voice softened, but his resolve remained firm. No, you didn't choose any of that. But you did choose to leave. You chose to speak out. You chose to come to America and talk about changing things. So what happened to that guy? Where's the person who was willing to walk away from everything because he couldn't stomach the hypocrisy anymore? Harry laughed bitterly. That guy learned that speaking truth to power doesn't automatically make you a hero. Jon, it makes you a target. It makes every conversation a minefield. It makes every interview a potential weapon that can be used against you and everyone you care about. So, you decided to play it safe instead, Stewart challenged. You decided that protecting your image was more important than the message you came here to deliver. I'm protecting my family. Harry shot back, his voice cracking slightly. I'm protecting my wife from the same treatment that killed my mother. I'm protecting my children from growing up the way I did, constantly wondering if their father is going to say something that brings the whole world crashing down on their heads. Stewart stepped closer, his voice intense, but not unkind. Harry, your mother didn't die because she spoke out. She died because the system you're still tiptoeing around created a culture where human beings became commodities to be hunted and consumed. And right now, by playing their game, you're perpetuating that same system. Harry's security chief whispered something urgent in his ear, but Harry waved him off with an irritated gesture. You don't understand what you're asking me to do, Jon. You want me to go out there and burn bridges I might need tomorrow. You want me to alienate people who could help me accomplish the things I'm actually trying to accomplish. What I want, Stewart replied firmly, is for you to remember why you left. In the first place, what I want is for you to stop acting like a politician and start acting like the person who had the courage to say the emperor has no clothes. The production assistant appeared in the doorway, clipboard in hand. Mr. Stewart, we really need to get moving. The audience is getting restless. Stewart held up a hand without taking his eyes off Harry. Give us 2 more minutes. Harry shook his head, frustration boiling over. This is exactly the problem. You want to turn this into some kind of dramatic moment for your show. You want me to have a breakdown on camera so you can go viral with the clip of the prince losing his mind. That's not what this is about, Stewart said, his own voice rising. Now, this is about whether you're going to use this platform to actually say something meaningful, or whether you're going to waste everyone's time with another rehearsed performance. Harry's voice cracked with indignation. You think this is a performance? You think I'm acting when I talk about the work I'm doing? When I talk about trying to help veterans who are struggling with the same mental health issues I've struggled with? I think you're telling part of the truth, Stewart replied. The safe part. The part that makes you look good without making anyone else look bad. But that's not how change happens, Harry. Real change requires someone to be willing to make people uncomfortable, including yourself. Harry's media trainer moved closer again, her anxiety visible. Harry, Perhaps we should postpone this appearance. We can reschedule when everyone's had time to cool down and refocus. No, Harry said firmly, surprising everyone in the room. No, we're not postponing anything. He turned back to Stewart, his eyes blazing. You want uncomfortable? Fine, let's talk about uncomfortable. Let's talk about how the same media outlets that destroyed my mother are now the ones profiting off every word I say about her death. Let's talk about how I can't grieve properly because every tear, every moment of pain becomes content for someone else's bank account. Stewart nodded encouragingly. Now we're talking. That's the conversation that matters. But here's what you don't understand, Harry continued, his voice gaining strength. I can't just say whatever I want without consequences. When I speak, it doesn't just affect me. It affects my wife, my children, the charities I work with, the veterans who trust me to represent their interests. So yes, I choose my words carefully. Yes, I have media training because unlike you, I don't get to just be a commentator throwing stones from the sidelines. Stewart's expression hardened. Throwing stones from the sidelines. Harry, I've been holding powerful people accountable for decades while you were being protected by the same institutions you now criticize. Don't lecture me about consequences when you've spent most of your life insulated from them. The words hit Harry like a physical blow. His face flushed red, and for a moment it looked like he might actually take a swing at the comedian. Insulated. Harry's voice was barely controlled now. I was 12 years old when I had to walk behind my mother's coffin while the entire world watched. I was in Afghanistan getting shot at while my brother was safely tucked away at university. I've been in therapy for years trying to deal with trauma that was created and amplified by the very system you want me to attack more aggressively. And I respect all of that, Stewart replied, not backing down despite the obvious danger in Harry's voice. But trauma doesn't give you a free pass to perpetuate the system that created it. If anything, it should give you more reason to tear it down. The room felt like a powder keg, ready to explode. Harry took a step forward, closing the distance between himself and Stewart. The security team tensed, hands moving instinctively toward their concealed positions. But Harry wasn't reaching for anything except the last threads of his composure. You want me to tear it down? Harry's voice was low. Dangerous. You want me to burn everything to the ground just so you can have good television? Let me tell you. What happens when you tear down institutions? John, let me tell you what happens when you declare war on systems that have existed for centuries. Stewart didn't flinch. Meeting Harry's intense gaze hidden, enlighten me. They tear you down faster than you can imagine, Harry continued, his voice gaining momentum. They use every resource at their disposal to destroy your credibility, your relationships, your sanity. They turn your own family against you. They make sure that every good thing you try to do gets twisted into something selfish or calculated. So you decided to negotiate with terrorists instead. Stewart shot back. You decided that playing nice with the same people who destroyed your mother was a better strategy than actually fighting them. The words hung in the air like a lit fuse. Harry's media trainer actually gasped audibly. Even his security team looked shocked at Stewart's audacity. Harry's face went completely white, then flushed deep red. How dare you? How dare you stand there and lecture me about fighting when you've never had skin in the game? When you've never had to choose between speaking your truth and protecting the people you love most in the world? Your mother had that same choice, Stewart replied quietly, but his words carried the force of a sledgehammer, and she chose truth, even when it cost her everything. The room erupted. Harry lunged forward, not quite attacking, but getting close enough that his security team immediately moved to intercept. Stewart didn't back down, didn't even flinch, just stood there watching as three men in suits tried to create space between the two combatants. Don't you ever, Harry shouted over the chaos. Don't you ever use my mother's death to score points in your petty media games? She died because people like you decided her pain was more valuable than her privacy. People like me. Stewart's voice cut through the commotion like a blade. Harry, I've spent my entire career going after the exact same media culture that killed your mother. The difference is I'm still doing it and you're making peace with it. Harry shook off his security team's restraining hands but didn't advance. Further, you think this is making peace? You think living in exile, having my family relationships destroyed, watching my wife get attacked daily by the same press that hounded my mother to death, you think that's making peace? I think you're fighting the wrong war, Stewart replied, his voice calming slightly, but losing none of its intensity. You're fighting to be accepted by people who will never accept you. You're fighting to be understood by institutions that profit from your pain, instead of fighting to change the system that created the problem in the first place. Harry laughed, but there was no humor in it. Change the system. John, I am one person. I'm not a government. I'm not a corporation. I'm not even a working member of the royal family anymore. I'm just a guy trying to build a decent life for his family while doing some good in the world. How exactly am I supposed to single-handedly destroy centuries of institutional power? The same way your mother started to, Stewart answered. One uncomfortable truth at a time. one refusal to play by their rules at a time, one moment of authentic courage at a time. And look how that ended for her. Harry whispered, the fight suddenly draining out of him. The room fell silent again, but this time the silence was heavy with grief rather than anger. Stewart's expression softened as he watched the prince struggle with emotions that were clearly still raw after all these years. Harry, Stewart said gently, your mother's death wasn't caused by her courage. It was caused by a system that treated her like prey instead of a human being. But her courage, her willingness to speak truth to power, that's what changed things. That's what made people pay attention to issues they'd ignored before. Harry shook his head slowly. Her courage got her killed, Jon. And you're asking me to follow the same path? I'm asking you to honor her legacy by refusing to let the same system that destroyed her turn you into their puppet. Stewart replied firmly. I'm asking you to remember that the reason people listened to you in the first place wasn't because you played it safe. It was because you were willing to say what others wouldn't. Harry's media trainer finally found her voice again. This conversation is over. We're leaving now. But Harry held up a hand, stopping her. He looked at Stewart for a long moment, something shifting in his expression. You know what the real tragedy is, Jon? You're probably right about most of it. But being right doesn't change the fact that I have a wife and children who didn't ask for any of this. Being right doesn't protect them from the consequences of my choices. Your children are going to grow up in the same world you did, Stewart said quietly. The same world your mother did. Unless someone has the courage to change it. Harry closed his eyes, taking a deep breath. When he opened them again, his voice was steady but final. I can't be that person, Jon, not anymore. I used up all my courage, just getting out alive. He turned to his team. We're done here. Cancel the appearance. As Harry moved toward the door, Stewart called after him. Harry, you still have a choice. You can still walk onto that stage and have the conversation that matters. Harry paused at the doorway, not turning around. No, Jon, I can't because, unlike you, I'm not willing to sacrifice other people for the sake of a principle. Even if it's the right principle, your mother would be disappointed, Stewart said quietly. Harry's shoulders tensed, but he didn't turn around. My mother is dead, Jon, and I intend to make sure my wife doesn't join her. With that, Prince Harry walked out of the green room, his security team and media trainer following close behind. Stewart stood alone, watching them go. The weight of what had just happened, settling over him like a heavy blanket. The production assistant appeared again, looking confused and worried. Mr. Stewart, what do I tell the audience? They're expecting Prince Harry. Stewart ran a hand through his hair, still staring at the empty doorway. Tell them we're having technical difficulties. Tell them we'll be right back with a very different show than they were expecting. As the chaos of canceling a live television appearance swirled around him, Jon Stewart couldn't shake the image of Harry's face in those final moments. The resignation, the defeat, the terrible weight of choosing between truth and safety. It was a choice Stewart had never had to make, and for the first time in his career, he wondered if he had pushed too hard, asked too much, demanded a price that no one should have to pay. But then he thought about all the stories that would never be told, all the truths that would never see light. All the changes that would never happen because good people chose silence over courage. And he knew that tomorrow he'd probably do the same thing all over again. So, what do you think really happened in that green room? Was Stewart right to push Harry so hard, or did he cross a line that should never be crossed? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more behind-the-scenes stories that the mainstream media doesn't want you to